Hello, welcome back to the channel. I'm Megan, the Healing Foods Coach, and I'm glad that you've come back to watch this content. So, just wanted to share with you very quickly, for those of you who do not know, I personally have healed my health. I've lost weight. I've improved my brain function. I've lost my brain fog. I've reversed my fibromyalgia, gotten out of a wheelchair, improved my mobility significantly. All of that through eating a non-inflammatory animal-based diet. And I believe that it can help all of us. That is what we are designed to eat, and the best way to help ourselves throughout this journey we call life. Now, today's topic is kind of I think, a timely one that I didn't know a whole lot about, and maybe you don't either, but it is all about cortisol. What is it exactly? What does it do to our bodies? And why do we have to avoid raising it too high or for too long? So let me just jump right in and start with, what is cortisol? It is a hormone that our bodies produce when we are in a stressed state, okay? And it is what puts us in that fight or flight mode. Now, if, for example, we are running away from danger, we have, I don't know, a tiger is chasing us and we need to escape. We get that sudden burst of energy. That is from the cortisol that allows us to do that superhuman burst of energy to run away from that sort of danger, or to flee from a burning house or building. It is what allows, let's say, a mother sees their child trapped in a car that catches fire. They manage to rescue their child or pull someone out from under a part of a building or structure that's fallen on them. That sudden burst of what seems like superhuman strength, that comes from our elevated cortisol levels out of our fight or flight mode. Now, in those actual emergency situations, we need that. It is what allows us, say, to endure through times of war. It is what allows us to be able to survive through times of drought and famine. However, without those emergency situations, if we are constantly in a state of fight or flight and our cortisol levels are continuously elevated, then negative things happen to the body. The first is any fat we have stored on our bodies, whether it is within an ideal range or not, will not go anywhere. Okay, as long as we are stressing our bodies, we cannot lose weight. We cannot. As far as body fat, you, of course, may be able to pee out some excess water weight that you're retaining, but as actual body fat, it will not go away if you are in a constant stressed state. And the reason I want to point that out is because there are things we do or things we eat that will actually cause us to have a stressed state and therefore cause our cortisol levels to raise and stay raised for long periods of time. So, eating carbohydrates, especially the highly processed, palatable, pre-packaged, factory-made carbohydrates that we all love to have, but that are so not good for our health. They are highly inflammatory and they do nothing to help us. Okay, so when you eat chips and cookies and pre-made cakes and all the packaged sugary drinks, all of those things put our body into stress. Our bodies are not meant to consume those things consistently and continuously. So not only are you causing a massive spike to your blood glucose, which is then telling your body to release insulin to help try to bring it down, but you're also releasing cortisol because you're putting things in your body that it sees as invading, as foreign, that it doesn't need. It is an immune response to what can be seen as foreign things in the body. So, for example, if you don't eat junk food, and good for you if you don't. If you're already there, fantastic, okay? But let's say you eat something that you have an intolerance for or that you are allergic to. Your body has an immune response, okay? And that immune response causes stress in the body, and it also creates a cortisol spike. So if you continue to eat the things that you are allergic to or that you don't tolerate well, again, these could be things that may not only be causing you to have a rise in your blood glucose, such as carbohydrates, as well as potentially, obviously, keeping your insulin levels high, which signals the body this is storage time, not burning fuel, not burning this for fuel time, but storage as fat time. When that happens, you're also releasing cortisol. And as long as your body is in a stressed out state where you are continuously filled with cortisol, you will never be able to lose the body fat that's on you. Now, don't despair, okay? Because there is hope. Now, what I would suggest to all of us, and for those of us new in this community, those of us who are just starting to try a healing, meat-based, animal-based diet, those of us who maybe are coming at it from type 2 diabetes, perhaps we have autoimmune conditions, we have Hashimoto's, or we have an underactive thyroid to some degree, or we have hormonal imbalances, we have PCOS perhaps. All of those things can be helped to some degree by reducing the stressed state of our bodies. And what we need to start with, and it's not just about breath work and meditation or prayer, although those are helpful, but it is about getting out the things we are consuming is the easiest thing to start with. So as I would say in other videos, you've got to reduce your carbohydrates. Please completely cut out the processed, highly starchy, highly sugary, highly addictive junk food carbohydrates, as well as the seed oils and anything that's got refined sugar or sugar in it. Cut that out from the start. Cut that stuff out first, because it gives you, not only does it create a response where you will probably, these are highly inflammatory foods. And when you are inflamed, your body's response is to dump out cortisol to deal with that inflammation. It sees it as a threat, a state of being in threat, and therefore the cortisol goes up. So if you get rid of the foods that are causing you inflammation, whether that's because they're just simply inflammatory like chips and cookies, or whether you have an actual intolerance or an allergy, like an allergy to gluten, like with celiac disease, or whether you don't tolerate certain plants or certain foods because you have IBS or gut issues or an actual diagnosed allergy, those things are going to cause inflammation as a normal response from your immune system, which will then trigger cortisol to raise. And like I said, as long as your cortisol levels are high or they're consistently raised all the time, eventually your body's going to just stop ignoring the signal. And then it's going to drop down and you're going to have super low cortisol, which is actually not good either. Okay, so we don't want it to be super low. We don't want it to be too low, but we definitely don't want to be in a state of high levels of cortisol, because when that happens, the body will hang on to every ounce of fat it has because it thinks that you're about to go into survival mode, which is one of the reasons why somebody who does severe restricting for their diets, they put themselves into a stressed state. And that last 10 pounds you can never seem to get rid of is because the body is refusing to. You have put it in a stressed out state. It now has so much cortisol flowing through you, it will not allow you to lose any further body fat because it thinks it's in starvation mode. And perhaps it is. Okay. That is why for so many people, fasting is a difficult thing. I personally don't fast because for me, it triggers too much of my bulimia and my restricting and binging and purging days from my eating disorder history. But for a lot of people, even if that was never a struggle, you put your bodies into a stressed state, depending on what type of fasting you're doing. Now, if you are doing, say, a fat fast where you're eating butter or some sort of fat and you're drinking water, you can probably do that for a few days. You're at least giving your body some energy. But if we're talking like a dry fast or a water only fast, you are still putting your body into a state of stress. Your cortisol levels are still going to raise. Now, perhaps not as significantly as if you were doing a complete dry fast, obviously, but you're still raising your cortisol levels. And so the benefit of doing a fast like that, where you're going for longer than, say, 3 or 4 days without eating, eventually your body is going to just kind of go, I can't do this. And that is, I would state, that is probably why many people cannot seem to get past 2 or 3 days without food. Now, let me just say this. There are many people who do intermittent fasting who have had great success. They've had a lot of extra fat on board. They have primed themselves, so they are able to do these fasts. And often they're having water or perhaps decaf coffee, maybe having some butter or fat in between to keep the body going. But the one thing that they've always said, and there are many influencers out there who do this and seem to do well, okay? I don't know their personal lives, but that's what it seems like. And the one thing they do always say, though, however, is if you are starting to get headaches, if you're feeling nauseous, if you're feeling muscle cramps and pain, stop. That is your body's signal. You've gone too long. You must fuel it with good fat. Now, how does cortisol work? Well, cortisol typically starts to elevate through the nighttime when we are resting. Okay? When we are resting, that is when the cortisol starts to pick up, and it peaks in the morning. And so it's always suggested, or I will always suggest to my clients, and I'm going to say this to you guys, this is kind of why it's important that we eat something first thing in the day. It doesn't have to be a big meal. It doesn't have to be a huge breakfast. You don't have to have 4 eggs and 5 strips of bacon, but you should eat something. Now, I always did that because I knew that if I didn't, it would be me being ravenous at lunchtime and then eating far too much at dinner time. That was typically why I had to start eating something in the morning. I knew I needed the fuel and the energy to get my system going. But I convinced myself I wasn't hungry, and I was drinking regular coffee, which is an appetite suppressant. What I didn't realize, actually, was that because cortisol is at its highest peak in the morning, the best way to actually bring cortisol levels down is to consume some fat. Now, whether you want to have, bacon with the grease or eggs fried in butter, or you just want to have a piece of butter, but a little bit of fat in the morning will help you be bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and wide awake for the rest of your day. And you'll bring your cortisol levels back down to a good level, the level that they should be at, so you're prepared should an emergency arise, but you're not actually living in that emergency state. And that's important. So, as I've said in my other videos, we have to reduce our carbohydrates. Get rid of completely the starchy, processed, sugary ones. Just cut those out completely. Okay? Reduce your carbs, for sure. Eliminate all sugar. Just get rid of it. It's not helping you. It's just going to keep you inflamed and in a terrible state. Also, the other thing I want to add is that we need to make sure that we are, of course, caring for our bodies, listening to our true hunger signals. But if we're not in that space yet where we can recognize true hunger or not, it can be a bit challenging. But we have got to get rid of the highly processed inflammatory foods first. We have to. The seed oils, the junk food, all the sugars, and the starchy processed carbs, especially. Those are particularly bad. And then even if we're looking at fruits and vegetables, I would suggest to you, if you are healing from gut issues, if you're trying to heal from thyroid dysregulation or hormonal imbalances, or you're having issues with food sensitivities, I would suggest that you eliminate all plants for a time. You may not need to do it forever. Okay? You may not have to do it like I do forever. My IBS is severe if I eat any plants, but not all plants are bad. Well, they're less bad. Okay? You may find after a few weeks, you feel great and that's it. You don't miss plants at all. But if you are thinking of reintroducing them, make sure that they are low carbohydrate, non-starchy vegetables, because the starch gives you that. The starch and sugar gives you the highest hit in your blood glucose levels, which is what spikes the insulin, puts you into a stress state, and therefore your cortisol is going to rise as well. All right, so stick with things like, if you can tolerate them, broccoli, cauliflower, avocado, asparagus, tomatoes, onions and garlic. Those are the ones I know of that seem to be low carb and not have too many issues for those who tolerate them. But if you find that you do not tolerate these things, then I would then keep them out. Why suffer with that immune response and a cortisol spike? Because all that's going to happen is it's going to keep that extra body fat trapped on your body. All right, so that's food. That's food stuff. There are other things that put us into a state of stress. Extreme exercise. Now, if you're out for a nice, enjoyable walk, with your dogs or your partner or maybe your friend or your child, that does not elevate our cortisol. We are out enjoying a nice stroll. It's comfortable. We're not breathing hard. That's fine. Going for a swim, even if you're swimming a few laps and you're not intensely trying to win, the Olympic swimming races, like they did in Paris. If you're not competing in swimming and you just love to get in the water and it's gentle on the joints and it's good for you, do it. Even riding your bike, if you just like to ride your bike around your neighborhood, do that. Do something you enjoy. That's fine, that you want to get out and do regularly. But anytime you feel like you are trying to be super intense with your workouts, you are raising your cortisol. And you are putting yourself into that stressed state. And so if you're constantly, for example, runners, okay, they do their races, they have to train for the races, yes, but they are not running at full intensity for 10 seconds every single day that they're training. They're doing other things too. Because if they did that every single day, like they would in the actual race, they have that intensity every single day, they're going to be in a consistent and constant state of stress. Their cortisol levels are going to go way, way up, and then they come way, way down, and you're going to have adrenal issues. Okay. And so they don't do that every moment of every day. And nor can we. Our bodies are not meant for that. So you might train to run, say, a marathon or a half marathon, or you might be in a fun bike ride for charity. That's great. Enjoy it. But then give yourself loads of time to recover after. And do that by eating a lot of fat, because that will help bring down your cortisol. And of course, as you do that and then eat animal meats and fat with it, your recovery time is going to be a lot quicker. When I came back home to England from Canada this summer, my jet lag was gone in 3 days. You know why? Because I ate lots of butter and egg yolks, and I was off of caffeine. So I got rid of the stimulants. I made sure to eat plenty of fat and some protein. And I'm convinced that is exactly why my jet lag was gone in 3 days. That's it. Normally it would be 2.5 weeks. Okay. And so cortisol plays a huge role in our bodies. It's there for those emergency moments. But let's be honest, most days we don't live in an emergency moment. We feel mental stress. Yes. We have things happening in life. We have bills to pay. We have work to do. We have kids we're trying to raise, or they're off to college, or whatever it might be. So we have life. But the secret is we have to figure out how we're going to get through life. And whilst I absolutely believe that breath work and meditation and prayer, if you are someone who chooses to pray, those are all very important parts of an overall healthy lifestyle that is healing, that will help calm our minds down, keep that kind of inflammation down as well. However, if we're not putting in the right foods, it's not going to make a whole lot of difference. It really isn't. Because as long as we are feeding ourselves inflammatory things like caffeine, alcohol, and other stimulants, as well as just the garbagey junk that's out there, all of the breath work in the world is not going to reduce our cortisol. We might feel calmer in our minds, but our bodies will not be affected. And so the key is that we have to make sure we keep our cortisol as low as possible within a good normal range. Okay. And that's what I wanted to make this video about, is that it isn't just about the exercising or the not exercising or the breath work or the meditation. That's all important. That can all play a part. But we got to get the diet right first, and that's key and that's critical. So I hope that is helpful. I hope that you've gotten something from this. Please feel free to share this with anyone else. And again, you know, whether you are mobile or not mobile, start with a diet. That plays a huge, massive, incredible role. And as long as we can get our inflammation and our cortisol levels down, if we can get ourselves out of a stressed state, we will lose the body fat. We will get better energy. We will have better mental focus. We will have better clarity. All of those things will come, but we got to start with cleaning up the diet first so we can reduce the inflammation, so that we can heal our autoimmune and other complex conditions. And therefore we can reduce our cortisol levels and lose the weight. So if you are finding you have better brain mentality powers, but maybe you haven't seen the scale shift yet, my guess would be is, and maybe you have been eating keto or ketovore or carnivore for a while, okay? Sometimes the weight can take a while to come off. But what I do know is the more that we worry and get anxious and feel stressed out about it, the more our cortisol levels go up, and the more that our bodies are going to just hang on to that fat as much as we don't want it to. So I say that to let you know, I know it's a balance. Keep just eating the good things. Keep eating the animal sources of meat and protein. Keep up with those. If you are somebody that you already know for a fact that you are okay with some of the lower carb vegetables or some of the more sour or less sweet things like berries, you want to have those every now and again, you're welcome to. However, pay close attention to how it's affecting you, because you may still want to remove those things. Our bodies will have an immune potentially inflammatory response, even if it's minor, to plant material, because we're not meant to eat lots of it consistently. Okay, we're not. We can get away with some of it for a little bit, but we're not meant to eat it solely and all the time. And so our bodies will have slight responses. Some people have significant reactions, like me, and other people it might just be, yeah, I had some berries, and then, you know, about an hour later I felt a bit bloated. So it may be relatively minor. And if that's not something you want to continue with, remove it, see if it improves. And what I think you will find is that as you get a lot more of those foods that can become inflammatory, even if they aren't necessarily to you at the moment, you may realize, oh, actually, I did respond to that. So as long as your body is in an inflamed, stressed state, you're going to have raised cortisol. And as long as your cortisol levels are raised, you will not be able to lose your body fat. Doesn't matter how many times you run around the block. Doesn't matter how many triathlons you try to do, how many marathons you get involved in. None of that will matter, because you're just adding more stress to your body. You're just raising the cortisol. So wanted to say that in fact, a much more calm, relaxed, mindful approach to our food and our overall life is what we need. And that can make all the difference. So I hope that's been helpful. Thank you guys so much for your fantastic support. As always, for all of the new subscribers, I super appreciate it. Reminding you guys that, of course, as always, if you are interested in some one-to-one coaching, I have spots available. You'll see the details right down there, the Healing Foods Coach at healingfoodscoach.com. All the information about rates and sessions and all that's on the website, which I hope to hear from you guys. But until the next video, thank you for watching this all the way to the end and for your patience. I really, really appreciate it. All the best for now. I will see you guys in the next video.